You are listening to This is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Hearn, telling stories of Oklahomans and those that have made it their home.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma podcast. Mike Hearn here, your host, back with another episode. Excited to share this episode with you today. But before we do, I've got to thank our sponsors. First of all, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame. They've been a huge part of this podcast for the last few years. So the Oklahoma Hall of Fame have been sharing Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com. And for daily updates, go to oklahomahof on Instagram and give them a follow. Our other sponsor today is the Chickasaw Nation. Now, the Chickasaw Nation have sponsored pretty much everything in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma. And it's an honor to have their name and their brand supporting this podcast. So a huge shout out to Governor Anatoby for supporting this podcast. It really means a lot. And finally, our third sponsor is 988. The Oklahoma 988 Mental Health Lifeline. 988 is a direct 3-digit lifeline that connects you with trained behavioral health professionals that can get all Oklahomans the help that they need. Learn more by visiting 988oklahoma.com. That's 988oklahoma.com. And now, let's get into today's episode. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, your host, back with another episode down at the new Griffin Media building in the middle of downtown Oklahoma City. It's probably really exciting for you to hear me say that. But my guest today gives me great pleasure to introduce Mr. David Griffin to the podcast. Just excited to dive into the story and all the amazing things that the company has done and the companies you have continue to do over the last 114 years old, which there's not many companies in Oklahoma that can probably say that, right?
I think there's probably just a handful, and like any company, it's the way we started out and the way we are today it's totally different. So it's got to evolve over time, and we continue to evolve today, and this building represents that evolution for our company.
Yeah, well, this new building, I mean, let's dive straight in and talk about this building. You've obviously done a lot of renovations to it. You're slowly moving down in here. People are doing, they're doing their trials, I guess.
Yeah, the rehearsals.
Rehearsals,
yeah.
There you go. Rehearsals now and getting everybody in. So, I mean, it's exciting, right? It's finally here.
Yeah, so we our company, Griffin Media, has got 4 TV stations, 2 in Oklahoma City, 2 in Tulsa. It's got an outdoor division, it's got a radio division in Tulsa, and a digital division on the media side of things. And in Tulsa, we had a building that we was a 22,000 square foot International Harvester dealership housing a TV built in the 1930s. That was it was time to move. So 10 years ago, it's actually 10 years ago, I think, in 2 months, we moved into our new facility there in the Tulsa Tulsa Arts District, which is fantastic. And we love being downtown. We love being part of something bigger than ourselves. And it's a great building. We did it in working with George Kaiser and his group and building that out. But we knew we wanted to replicate that here in Oklahoma City. And, they had an opportunity to purchase the Century Center, which we're renaming 100 West Main. We figured the Century Center is kind of an old, dated name, and let's go through something cool. So we went online and looked around at, cool buildings. And they're all kind of named after the street. So it's 100 West Main. Yeah. And we were able to purchase it and then design it and really kind of create something unique, I think, in the country. Because this building houses our 220 Oklahoma City-based employees, corporate headquarters and media side and on investment side. But it also houses the Oklahoman. They have about 70 employees, and so they're right here. And then we've got Oklahoma Watch and Oklahoma Media Center. So those are the nonprofit journalists. So I think this is the first and only place in the country where you have for-profit and nonprofit journalists all in one kind of media hub. And it just happens to be in the heart of downtown, which I think is the most important corner of all of downtown, right here. Streetcars, we're in a conference room, streetcars running by. You've got the Myriad Gardens here. You've got Prairie Surf across the street, which someday maybe could be the new Paycom arena if that comes up. Yeah. So it's everybody, all of our employees are just ecstatic to be here. It's to hear the energy. When you and I were walking in, Bobby Miller, our 4 p.m. anchor, was handing out cookies to all our neighbors, which is just, that's how excited our team is about just being down here and being in part of Oklahoma City.
Yeah, and as great as the old, the quote, the old building is, out in, northeast Oklahoma City, kind of tucked away, you are in the thick of it now, aren't you?
We are in the thick of it, but that left a problem because we were in that building for 70 years, and it's a great building, but it's not a modern, contemporary workspace. And in today's world, when you're recruiting people and the way our company's evolved, you really need to have a modern workspace. So we've actually, it was announced last week that we're donating that building to Langston University, which is the furthest west historically black college. They have a journalism program, and we are connected to them through various people in the city, and we announced that we're donating that building, all of the broadcast equipment that we're not bringing here, which was most of the stuff we're doing here is brand new, so almost a fully functional television station. To them. They're going to move their journalism department there, and it's actually drawn lots of national attention. Gail King from CBS got wind of it, and she's interested in doing a story, and there's a lot of nonprofit Inasmuch Foundation, where I'm a board member. They contributed significant amount of money to help them do a kind of a review of, okay, what are we going to do with this? They've hired the dean of the Cronkite School at Arizona State University, which is one of the top journalism schools in the nation, to come and help them. So, the goal here is for us to move downtown, which is fantastic. It's fantastic for our employees, for our advertisers, everybody, into a hub of journalists, which is great for newsmakers because it's a one-stop shop. And then to take our existing facility and turn it into a thriving, historically black college journalism program. I think it's you couldn't ask for a better win-win scenario in my mind. You couldn't paint a better picture than that. I'm just so glad it turned out that way.
So, to that point, where does the idea come from that, hey, I know we're going to have a new building one day, and I know that we're going to upgrade all our equipment, so we've got to do something with this building, and it's obviously it's quite a historical piece to your business. You've been there for 70 years.
That's right.
Where does that idea come to think, we don't need this. We should give it to someone who's really going to use it?
Well, I was talking to Councilwoman Nikki Nice, and we were talking about our move downtown and our acquisition of 100 West Main, the building. And she says, what are you going to do with your existing building? And I said, we need to leave it in really good hands, because what I don't want to do is have this empty corner that just sits empty. And that neighborhood needs something. It needs to have business, it needs to have energy. It is Northeast Oklahoma, just Oklahoma City needs that type of thing. So we just kind of looked at a lot of different organizations, and Celia from this Millwood School District, who's fantastic, she said, I can't use it, because we talked to them about it. But she said, what about Millwood? And then it's all right, well, Millwood. And it's like, well, they've got a journalism program. So we met with the president, and we said, what if we gave you this? And his eyes got real big. Like, what do you mean? If you're going to give us this? It was a great conversation. But it kind of happened just organically out of just lots of conversations about not wanting to abandon that part of Oklahoma City or tear it all down and just leave it for future development. That just sounds like a terrible answer to a problem.
Yeah.
And this just seemed like a lot better answer. Yeah. And it turned out better than I could ever dream.
Yeah. And is Jim still going to be flying the chopper out of there?
No, that's a great question. That's the question. The number one question I get is, are you bringing your chopper? And the first thing I'd say is, well, we're a terrible neighbor because the chopper is rather loud. So we're awful. And it's not like we can land it on the parking garage on top of our building, because it'd wake everybody up at the Colcord, which is a terrible deal. Or land it at the Myriad Gardens, or Scissortail. Maybe we should ask the mayor if we'd park it at Scissortail Park. But we're going to move it to Wiley Post.
Okay.
It seems like that's a better answer than having it in just, I wouldn't say abandoned, but just in an isolated spot with a heliport there, and that way Jim's around other pilots. I think it's safer for us to have it there. Access to fuel's easier, so we're gonna park it at Wiley Post.
Yeah. So back to this building then. When you think, we're building a whole new building, we get to design this building specifically for us and for our business. And thank you for the great tour, because I got to see everything, where it's all going to be moving. And when you're standing at the top of, below that giant screen, and you look out at everybody, and you just imagine all the people working at their desks. I mean, I got chills even standing there with nobody there, right? I can't imagine what's going to be like in 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's going to be really, really fun. We are incredibly intentional about how we designed it, because we wanted energy. This business is built off energy, and positive energy and creativity and people bumping into each other and working together in collaborative fashion. And we were able to get all the drivers of our business on that first floor that you looked over, and all our production staff and IT staff, and newsroom's going to be right there, just looking out over the city. It's a pretty special deal, and it was really fun. It was really fun to design. We had a great team. You had Gardner Architects. They were fantastic to work with. You had Jennifer Welch, who helped on kind of big picture overview. We had a great group from our team here and just working on it. My wife, as I told you, my wife and Josh Welch, we gave them, my wife's a fine art photographer. Sells most of her work in the East and West Coast, but we put her on an assignment with Josh Welch to go out and shoot Oklahoma and take photographs. So we've got fine art photography going to be all around our building, images from Oklahoma, which really, I think, steps up our game a little bit.
Right.
And it really is, we're really excited about it.
Yeah. Well, and also, to that point of just showing Oklahoma off and reminding your employees and workforce that this is where Oklahoma is. Oklahoma's so diverse, whereas landscape, people, stories, history, you got a lot of wall space here, and I'm sure you could easily fill it with great photography, right?
I think she's doing 68 pieces, I believe, and they're going to be big, and they're all going to be just absolutely beautiful. So she's been working really, really hard. So so I owe her a lot for that. Yeah,
I'm sure you're gonna be happy to get that plug listening to this. You can't forget that, which is, it's special to have, especially with your wife too. That's right. That's neat. That even when she's not here, you're going to see a photo that okay. You're still in work with me. You're still looking over me, all that stuff. So let's go back a bit then. Obviously, the business is 114 years old, family business. Yeah. What's your earliest memory of what family business was for you when you were growing up?
Yeah, so I grew up in Muskogee.
Okay.
I grew up, and so it was. I've got one brother, John, who's my business partner in the holding company for Griffin Media. So Griffin Media, and we have two companies, Griffin Media and Griffin Investments. So John is my business partner in that. But my first growing up in Muskogee is we were in the food manufacturing business. Just a brief history. My grandfather moved to Oklahoma before statehood and founded a Griffin Food Company in McAlester, Oklahoma, before statehood. And he moved it to Muskogee in 1923. Got in the manufacturing business there, made jams, jellies, syrups. It's kind of famous for its syrup, number one selling syrup in Oklahoma. And he moved it there, and that factory still exists today. My brother owns that business 100%, he and his family. But he offices out of there every day. He offices out of that same factory that my grandfather founded in 1920s in downtown Muskogee, which is really cool. Yeah. But he got into the radio business in the early 1930s. I had radio stations in Little Rock, Tulsa, and Oklahoma City. And the story goes that he had these food products and he needed a way to sell them. So he said, hey, this radio thing seems like a big deal in the 1930s, so let's go there and do that. Invested, and he was a banker. He must have been quite an entrepreneur. I never knew him. He passed away in 1944. And my dad, as he said, was camping in Europe at the time, which was. He never really wanted me to ever go camping again, I assure you. So after the war, my dad got involved with my uncle, and they took radio, basically sold that, and then got into the television business. So we had Little Rock, Tulsa, and Oklahoma City. And so they had that, and then late 1960s, my father and my uncle, he married my dad's sister, and they split the businesses up. Family businesses can be hard.
Oh, yeah.
Lots of cousins and things like that. So they said, hey, let's just split these things up. So my uncle took Tulsa and Little Rock Television. He later sold those in the early 1980s. And then my dad took Oklahoma City and Oklahoma City and the food company. So my first memories of growing up was really the food company in Muskogee. I mean, I'd go down and hang out with Dad's office, this big factory, cranking out food and seeing your name on food when you go to the grocery store. And, my first job I was 14 years old, and I worked at a supermarket. I was a sack boy, and I still have my first check, $14, which is fantastic. Just seeing your name on a product, it kind of generates great pride.
Yeah, definitely.
And then, living in Muskogee, we weren't able to see what News 9 was doing because it's just too far with a different part of the state. But I didn't know much about that. But as I grew up, I learned and more about that, and really fell in love with that business.
Yeah. So when you're filling sacks at the grocery store, at a young age. What do you think you want to do when you grow up? Then you see a name on these products, and there's quite a lot of family pride in that. But what do you think at that point? I like television, movies, and music. I want to go into the media business. Or are you thinking?
Yeah. So when I turned 16, my brother and I both, when he turned 16 too, we worked in the factory in the summers, and you quickly learn what you like or don't like. Yeah. And so my other was I love news. I love news content. I mean, growing up as a kid, we had magazines that would come to our house, and I would just devour magazines. Time, U.S. News and World Report, Newsweek. Those were always really, really important to me to go and read. And I used to watch CBS Evening News, and then in Tulsa at the time, I think it's the ABC or the NBC Evening News would go off at 6 o'clock. So CBS was at 5:30, and then I'd switch and watch the other one. And so I just always felt connected to current events and news and what's going on. And so I just love that part of the business.
Yeah.
So kind of got into the TV space and liked it and said, I like this a whole lot. So after college, an opportunity came up for me to work up in New York. Went through a training program with a company called Telerep, and they sold national television time. So they have clients all over the country, and they sold time. And after that, I moved to Atlanta, and then came back here.
Yeah. Where'd you go to school? Where'd you go to college?
Yeah, so I graduated from Muskogee High, and I really felt like I needed. Most of my friends went to OU, but I really felt like I needed to go somewhere a little smaller, and so I went to Westminster College in Fulton, Missouri. It's famous for the Winston Churchill's Iron Curtain speech in 1947, 48, somewhere around there. And so I went there, and between my freshman and sophomore year, my father passed away. Sudden heart attack. He was pretty young. He was 62 at the time. My mom was really struggling because there was not much succession planning on the business side of things. And there was no real structure. She didn't know what to do. Yeah. And so I went back to Westminster for another year, but found myself on calls all the time, found myself needing to come back home, trying to help her as much as I could. I was 19 years old. My brother John would have been 21 or 22 years old. And he was at OU at the time, and just trying to figure this out. And this was 1985. So it was just too hard. And so I came back and ended up graduating from the University of Oklahoma. which was great. So I got the best of. I got a small college, and then I got the big. And I had a lot of friends there, but I was able to kind of start really my work while I was in college. And there was a period that from the time my father passed away in 1985 to 1990 when I moved back here, Oklahoma was in a depression. It was in the oil bust. Banks were going bankrupt. It was a really tough time to be in Oklahoma. I remember we're sitting here in downtown Oklahoma City, and I remember a buddy of mine, real good friend, and I took him up. He was interviewing at the Bank of Oklahoma, and I was at Interurban, which is at the cross street from the BOK at the time, and there was not a human being on the street, not a car, nothing. It was the most depressing place I've ever seen, and it was just surreal. So Oklahoma was really struggling. Our company leadership was struggling. It was really creating a mess. So when I left, when I was living in Atlanta, we had some legal issues. We had some financial issues in the company. And then, so I moved back. My brother also moved back. My brother moved to Muskogee. I moved to Oklahoma City, and we had some great managers here. We had some not so great managers here that we had to switch up. So at a very young age, John and I were able to work together with our mom and the management team to kind of turn the company around.
Yeah. So when you do come back, then at that time, how many companies do you have? And you have the food and the media side. What is the state of everything at that time? You had Griffin Food Company in Muskogee, and then you had KWTV in Oklahoma City. And from 90 to 94, it really took us a couple of years to get everything kind of turned around. But you have those two companies, and there is no strategic value in that equation, and it's a family business. So we worked out as a family that we were going to split the businesses up, do some buyouts. My mom was she was interested in kind of moving on with her life. I mean, she really worked hard to save the business, quite frankly, after my dad passed away. And I think she was like, this is really not so much fun. But we were able to get it really turned around, and we kind of divided everything up. So my brother, who's my business partner in the then TV station, single TV station, and then he owns the food company 100%. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so we started with, all right, so now we got a single TV station. What are we going to do?
Yeah.
And there's a great book by Jim Collins, and it's called Good to Great. And really the answer is, the question he asked was, go find something you can be the best in the world at. That's kind of your, and how are you different? It's all different ways you can look at things. And so we said, all right, well, I think that's media in Oklahoma. Especially at that time, you think about it, and Oklahoma is still coming out of the Depression. Nobody wanted it. So we said, let's go do it. Yeah. And we had a very successful television station, so we were able to kind of grow it from there, and had a successful run, and then we used to, I called it my Christmas call from a guy named Robert Deckert and Jim Maroney, and they're great friends, and they called me about every Christmas saying, hey, we want to buy your company. They had a TV station in Tulsa. Yeah. And I was really young. I was in my early 20s. I had just gotten married, and I'm just like, man, why would I want to go work for some big publicly traded company? And it just didn't resonate with me. And let's go try to do something special here. So I'll never forget, Robert called me one day and said, hey, if you're not going to sell to us, why don't we sell to you? And I had no idea what we were doing. Yeah. I've never done a major acquisition in my life, but Steve Forrester, who's now president of our media company, and I, we built a little team, and we went down and did the acquisition and bought Tulsa, which doubled the size of our company overnight, and really gave us this kind of Oklahoma presence that really is statewide, fulfills our mission of, which is today keeping Oklahomans safe, informed, and entertained, and really gave us the platform to really expand the business into outdoor, into radio in Tulsa.
Yeah.
We'd love to have radio here in Oklahoma City also. As digital's grown, as social's grown, we've gotten into all those spaces and acquiring more TV stations. So, just having this concentration of assets is really, really unique in the country.
Yeah.
And we just want to create barriers to entry so that the playing field is tilted to our guys.
Yeah.
And
so back to, read that book and seeing the good to great and being the greatest that you can be in your, in your area. For people who don't understand like the news and the TV station space, when you look at that vision for what is great for us what is that?
I think that's a great question, and I think it's just when somebody wakes up and they make a choice that they choose us.
Yeah.
And we're really, really fortunate that we've been able to do that. And it's really no matter what device you're on, whether you're sitting in your living room or you're on your phone or you're in your car, it doesn't really matter to us. We want to be that source of information. So that's kind of the first thing. The second thing is a sense of pride. If you have a news staff who is incredibly proud of the work that they do and the quality of work that they do, it will feed the first objective because people feel that. And people see that on air. If people are just dialing it in and just saying, well, I'm got to go to work today, we don't want that. We want people who are passionate and give them the resources and the budget to go do great work. Yeah. That's why we sent Alex Cameron to Washington, D.C. We're the only TV group in the state of Oklahoma that has a dedicated reporter exclusively in Washington. He reports from there all the time. It's a differentiator for us. Yeah. Does that make us money? Does not make us $1.
Probably costs you more money.
It costs a whole lot of money to have employees in Washington, I've learned. But it's the right thing to go do. And people can be proud. It's like, we've got Alex here. And I was in Washington meeting with our congressional delegation. And they're just saying, we appreciate having that local voice here. And that's our mission. And if you go do that really well, the rest of it takes care of itself.
Yeah. I mean, it's when you really break it down and you look into it, you're with people when they get out of bed, right? You're with people when they go to sleep at night. You're like, and if like now today, that's probably on Twitter or social media, but you still got people who wake up in the morning, flick the TV on, and they're watching the newscasters in the morning. And
today's a rainy day. People want to know, is it going to rain on my way into work? And what happened? There's a tragedy in Broken Arrow last night that people want to know what's going on. So we play a very integral part of everyone's lives. Yeah. And they invite us into their living room. They invite us into their phone nowadays. So it's just an honor to do it.
Yeah.
I think I've got the greatest job around, by the way.
Yeah, I can totally see that and totally see why you love doing what you do, because of just the impact that you have across the state. And even though you might never meet these people, they feel like they have a personal relationship with that whoever that person is on the other end of the camera, because they're there all the time. Right. And that relatability. So back in kind of early 90s, obviously, one of my early interviews was with Robin Marsh, and 5-10 minutes into the interview, we're talking about her, covering the bombing, and she was supposed to be going somewhere else that day, and just as timing and fate would have it, you sent her down to the bombing memorial and everything that happened that day. But for you, that was early 90s, was kind of like, seems like the period of when you guys were like trying to get your stride going.
Yeah, it really was. And the bombing really set a tone for us. Yeah. Robin actually came to work for us, I want to say like 2 weeks before the bombing. Mm-hmm. So it was really fresh, and I'm shy. I look at the video today. I mean, I was in my 20s and she probably was too. So we were all just really, really young, and I'll never forget that when you felt that blast, and we did 5 days of live TV without a commercial, without interruption. I'll never forget, our chopper was taking off from the helipad, and somebody ran out and said, hey, he was going to go to Enid to cover a story, and he just went to downtown, and we got the only chopper shot of it. And it airs all over the country on the anniversary, but that wind blew away, and it was like, oh my gosh, what just happened here? And our teams did a great job. Everybody in the broadcast industry did a great job. It was a true community the outreach was pretty incredible. But it set a tone for the city. It set a tone for our company, and showed what we can really do.
Yeah, and those are the moments that, and the way Robin explained it, I think there was a shot where, she's live, right? She's talking to everyone that's watching at that time, and I think somebody ran past her and said that there was a second bomb, and she's like live on air and got to convey that professionalism that everything's okay, and
never forget that. That just everything was so fluid that day, and we had a report. I think it was Randy Renner. Randy was there, and he was running out saying that there's a second bomb, and it turned out to be, I believe, an ATF dummy bomb, because ATF was in that building. Yeah. But it was that was quite a 5 days. I actually got married 2 weeks after that.
Wow.
Yeah. So my then fiance Kirsten, we were tied up at work, and planning a wedding, doing all that. Yeah. It was quite a time. We needed our honeymoon was really just a break from working almost 24/7 for 2 weeks leading up to that. Then you got to say your I do's. So.
And did you go on a honeymoon?
We did. Yeah, we did. Yeah.
You deserved that getaway for a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because the business that you're in, like you said, you keep people safe, informed, and entertained, and it's a lot that goes so deep into people's lives, right? And we talked to David was downstairs. We talk about the weather, the weather in Oklahoma, and even a few weeks ago we had some tornadoes, which it's so important that when someone sees that, you could save a life by doing that, right? And it doesn't have to be safety. You go to informed, and what is the weather like today? Yeah. What is the entertainment side?
That's right. And you got a lot of big elections going on in Oklahoma City right now, and I think our team is doing a great job of prepping for that and covering that. And
that's probably the great thing about you guys remaining kind of solely owned and not being owned by a different corporation, is that you get to report on stuff, but you don't get to when people watch the news in the States, it's like one of two sides, right? Whereas you guys get to be like, this is the news, these are the facts. It's not this is my side of the news, right? But election time, that's a huge time at the moment in the state, not just the governor's race, but everything else too.
Yeah, no, there's a lot going on. We really strive to be absolutely middle of the road. Yeah, no agendas. We try to do debates. We try to just do as much as we possibly can, because it's an important function of our company is to provide that information to people, and they've got to be informed voters. They got to fill out their ballots, whether mail-in or go to the ballot box, and know who these people are and what they do and what they stand for, so they can make an informed decision, and we can get the best electors in there and represent our state.
Talking of the news and the staff that you have, did you ever think that you would be on the other end of the camera and
never
presenting?
Never. Oh my God! No, I grew up on the sales side, business side. Yeah. But I've got a love for news, and I get that's the business we're in, but never.
Seeing the business evolve over the last, since the early '90s to when you've really been involved with it, and seeing the city evolve too, right? And coming from that terrible disaster to what it is today, and you get to look out on the city now from this office and this building, and you can't help but notice how prideful you are of this business and where you're at, and everyone you employ.
Yeah, it's when I moved here in Oklahoma in 1990, I moved from Atlanta, Georgia, which was absolutely thriving. They'd just announced that they had the Olympics. That was so fun being there and being a part of all that. To moving to Oklahoma, and it was dead. The building that we're in was just abandoned, basically, and the street corners were all abandoned. It was people need to remember that time, because we need to remember where we came from and what it took. It took the community coming together and to really get to where we are today. And if you don't come together, if we forget those lessons, this city, this state will not thrive, and we can't be divided. To your earlier point about the political landscape that we're in, we just can't be divided. We've got to be united for the common good and lift ourselves up and keep growing. And MAPS played a huge role in that. The bombing played a big role in that. It really brought everybody together.
Yeah. So as the business grows, you just start acquiring stations. After the first acquisition, you think, we've done this before, we should do this again and continue. And then that, I guess, sets the path for your growth plan, I assume.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
able to just keep acquiring businesses.
That's right. So on the media side, we only look at the state of Oklahoma.
Okay.
So if it's Wichita, Kansas, Wichita Falls, Texas, we don't want anything to do with it, because what we have is this unique niche of serving Oklahoma. So we put all of our capital into that. So we're capped out on TV stations. So we can't buy any more. FCC will not allow us to do that. So we have 2 in Tulsa, 2 in Oklahoma City. We have radio in Tulsa, so we have the maximum number of radio stations in Tulsa. We'd love to have radio here in Oklahoma City, so yeah, maybe one day.
I didn't know there were regulations on how many you could buy.
Yeah, absolute regulations. You can't buy the number 2 radio. The 1 and 2 can't team up, so 2 of the big 4 can't combine.
Okay.
So there's FCC regulations, there's Department of Justice regulations. The ownership structure is highly regulated, and so you're limited to like 5 radio stations you can own only. So you've got that.
Is that just statewide, or is that like?
No, it's in what's called a DMA, which is designated market area.
Okay.
And it's designed. It's basically your broadcast signal dictates what that is, and so they just don't want a concentration of power in a marketplace. So like here in Oklahoma City, we have News 9, and then we have KSBI, Channel 52. So we have 2 TV stations here or there.
Yeah. I mean, it does make sense, right? Because you could have someone come in who wants to be a
own them
total
all.
dictator
That's right.
and own them all. And
that's not a good. Competition is incredibly healthy. If one person owned it all, it would not be healthy.
Yeah. It would be a disaster.
It
would be a dictatorship.
It would be. I mean, what's the first thing the dictators do? They go take over the TV stations.
Yeah.
Right? Even today, that's the first thing they go and do.
Yeah. What you mentioned there, I love is that your concentration of Oklahoma. And, there's a giant sign out there that said Oklahoma's own Griffin.
Yep.
Why? I know this is a home where you grew up, but, I mean... Yeah,
why not?
I mean, why not go to a different city and grow the business and go somewhere else, or to a different DMA, or
it's okay. So you take a market, Wichita Falls, Wichita, Kansas, right across the border. What do we add to that? Mm-hmm. We don't know the community. Mm-hmm. We don't live there. We don't know the advertisers. We don't know the newsmakers in the community. Yeah. So what value do we add? Well, we add a balance sheet. And we could do that, and we have some operational expertise. We could do that too. But you really don't add anything to that acquisition. Okay. Whereas here, when we were bought into Tulsa, that's home. Yeah. You know people. You're part of the community, and you're local, and you can meet with advertisers, and you know them all. And they, some advertisers in Oklahoma City and Tulsa are one and the same. Yeah. And so. That's why.
Back to the quote of being good to great, right? Just being great in your area.
What can you be the best in the world at? Yeah. You can be the best in the world at doing something that nobody else cares about. We compete against these big, giant, multi-billion-dollar companies. Yeah. And our little company does pretty well against them. And
you're still getting Christmas calls, I assume?
You know what? That's stopped. I mean, I know a lot of people in the industry, and I figured if I ever want to make a call, I could get it done pretty quick. But and then it's like, okay, then what? Yeah. You've built a successful business. You've got a great team of people who you love and care for. You got a unique opportunity, and let's just keep rolling.
Yeah. Yeah, and keep coming to into the new building and progressing new equipment, and 20 years down the line, you might have new equipment.
And the fun part of it is how do you evolve the business? How do you change it? We evolved from my grandfather started in the food business, and it's evolved to a multimedia company and focused on the state of Oklahoma. It's kind of it's an interesting path, but okay, so what's that next 10, 15 years call for as we evolve and change and thrive and keep investing back in. And this move downtown was a key part of that, because we've really gone in, and it's going to change the way we work. It's going to change the way we interact with advertisers. It's going to change the way we interact with newsmakers.
Yeah.
So it's just going to. This is going to be the foundation for this evolution and continued growth of this organization.
Yeah. So what you said earlier, you love news. What gets you like really excited and geeked up about just a particular shot or just delivery like this?
I'm a weather nut.
It's the weather. So tornado season is
it drives
time.
my wife crazy. But
are you down here during tornado season, just seeing it in the thing?
No, I mean it depends on what we're doing and where it is, and it's if it's in the evening, I'll turn it on at home to her dismay and be glued to it and ignore everybody in the family. But it's an important part of what we do, and we witness some of the worst tragedies around. We take them very, very seriously, and we know that we've got to make sure our staff is safe, and that we do a really, really good job of covering it so people can remain safe and informed, and they can make decisions to go in their safe place. And I mean, it's so right down our mission. I mean, it is absolutely what we do, and we will go wall to wall for hours and hours without a single commercial. Our sales manager will let us know how much that day cost from a lost advertising revenue standpoint. It's like, that's just the business we chose to be in. Yeah. That's it. Let's roll.
Yeah.
And everybody in the whole company gets just like, all right, let's go. Or just covering a really, really important political race. Debates are really important everybody takes great pride in all that.
Yeah. Is Twister one of your favorite movies?
What's interesting is we advised them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they were in our offices, and God, I forgot the name of the producer, but she was in our office.
They're coming out with the second one.
Are they really? Okay.
They're coming out with the second. Yeah.
Well, they hadn't contacted us.
Not yet.
But no, we were kind of their consultant on how to storm chase, how to do it safely. And Gary England was a huge help to them, and as kind of an advisor in it. And it was fun to go to the premiere and see, the people that work for you. Gary was in that movie, and it was fantastic. It was really a fun deal.
Because that was my first experience of what Oklahoma is. Is like, go watch this movie and you'll get it. And I'm like, I love that movie. I never realized it was in Oklahoma.
That's it.
And then you watch it when you're here. When I was in college, I was like, these names, they're so familiar.
That's right. All the little towns and
It's just so good.
I hope they shoot the new one here.
That would be great to see the new one here. Do you ever think about jumping in the truck with Val and Amy or any of the other chasers?
No.
You haven't done that?
No.
Is that a bucket list item, or would you rather not?
God, that's a great question.
Because the movie was good. The documentary was incredible, right? The documentary on Val and Amy.
The one that Matt Payne did. Yeah, it was really well done. Yeah. So most of their day is doing nothing, waiting. And I'm not really good at doing nothing and waiting. So I probably don't want to do that. Yeah. I know I don't want to be with Jim, because I think I would not be a good passenger while he's up. And he flies really, really safe, and he knows what he's doing. But I just would not be a good passenger, and I don't think my wife would be real happy with me.
God, it does seem that I think that
we should get you out there, Val and Amy, and
I would love to do that. Yeah. Sign me up. I think that would be so much fun. But you're right, though. You're just driving around for 8 hours of the day, and then you get 30 minutes of wow, this is it now, right? But that exhilaration and going all over the state too. It's not just just local. I
don't know what kind of hours Val goes all over, and he's got a nose for it. We've got the best storm chasers in the world. I mean, literally, we have the finest storm chasers. They're incredibly safe, but they know what they're doing, and somehow, some way, they find all of these. There are no surprises. That's the great thing about living in Oklahoma is there are no surprises on tornadoes. People freak out about them, but we've got them surrounded. We'll have 3 people on a tornado, and we got Jim in the air, and we've got 2 chasers down, broadcasting live. It's pretty amazing how that comes together.
It is, and I can remember, me being out, from the UK, and my mum calling me, what's going on? I was like, we had a tornado yesterday, and she's like, what? And then I remember they came here during May or June one year, and we had some storms, and my dad was like every other Oklahoman on the back porch just watching clouds go by.
That's it.
He gets it now. He knows exactly what it is.
It's an exciting part of the day. Yeah, our new location, we've got these glass conference rooms, so we'll be able to see them coming. So it'll be the big storms coming in. It'll be really fun.
Yeah. Moving on to the other side of things, obviously, you do a lot for the community. You mentioned you're on the Inasmuch Foundation board. I'm sure you're on a lot of other boards as well. As you get older and as you probably have less time in the business, you probably have more time to give elsewhere and give back. Tell me about that angle and why you do that.
Yeah, so I spend a lot of time on the business. So I'm CEO of the holding company, and I've got a president of the media side, a guy named Rob Cryer. Rob's worked for the company for 47 years. Wow. He is one of my best friends. He's fantastic. Steve Forrester, who runs our investment side, he has worked for our company in 30 some odd years. So we've all worked together, traveled together, done it all together. And so they were elevated last year to presidents of their respective organizations. So which really allowed me to change kind of how I spend my time. I want to be much, much more strategic. I want to be, service to the community is important. I think I'm on the Inasmuch Foundation board. I'm also on the Kirkpatrick Foundation board. So it's they serve two different groups around, but it's an honor for me to serve them and I try to spend some energy on that. But my true love is here working with the team and making sure our company remains healthy, both financially and just from a team standpoint. While kind of preparing our company for maybe one day that I'm not around and preparing, it's next level leaders, next level ownership as our kids get older. As my brother is my business partner. He's got a family, and we just want to prepare the company for the inevitable, I guess.
Yeah. Do you have kids?
I do. Yeah. Kirsten and I have got 3 kids. So Grace lives here in Oklahoma City. She graduated from TCU right during the pandemic. She walked out of her bedroom and said, "I just graduated." I'm like, oh, isn't that great?
You didn't have to sit through a 3-hour graduation.
I did not. But she sells real estate here in Oklahoma City and is doing fantastic. She's a born real estate salesperson. Yeah. And my son Jack is a senior at Duke University. Okay. He plays on the football team. So he just got a job, so he's going to be moving to Dallas after his senior year, and he'll do that. And then we have a 14-year-old who's a freshman at Heritage Hall. Okay. Yeah. So they keep us real busy.
Yeah, no doubt. Do you think that they'll one day come into the business? Do they have any? Do you guys have? Obviously you got a big family, your side, your brother's side as well, and all the cousins and stuff. Do you have? Do you have a meeting every now and then just to keep people informed? Like, how does that? Because with a family business, there's nothing worse than communicate. You gotta communicate.
You got to communicate. So my brother's kids are a little older. Okay. And what we've really started this year was trying to bring them kind of all together. And what's this mean to be business partners? And how do you communicate? And is there opportunities to work in this organization? And so, we're starting all of that and trying to set up some structures. And I've been able to spend a lot of time strengthening this foundation, so that if one of them wants to come in and there's an opportunity, how's that going to work?
Well, moving away from the work side of things, what are your passions outside of work?
Oh, so I like to work. I mean, I really, really do.
Probably the hardest question.
I love, just hanging out with my family, and I burn a lot of energy here. Yeah. And this is where my energy goes, and spending time with family. I like to cook. It's kind of my biggest release. We run up to Montana every summer and in the winter, which we really love. And fly fishing and hiking are the things that I really outside of Oklahoma activities that I love to do. There's nothing better than being in a river after a long hike and catching some trout. I think it's a pretty fun day.
Tell me about the cooking thing.
I just grew up in the kitchen and at our house, and my mom always told the story that I was going to starve if she was going to cook, so I had to learn to do it, and I just like to do it. It's a connector. Yeah, it's a way to connect with people and in small groups, and I'm fortunate I get to travel a lot, so I get to eat at some really fun restaurants and enjoy that. But I like weekends cooking up some things and just having friends over and just enjoying.
One thing I love to ask people is obviously Thanksgiving's such an important family time.
Yeah.
But obviously food is kind of center of the table. What is your specialty for Thanksgiving?
I cook it all.
You take all take care of everything.
It's the whole. I get a little bit of help from my mother-in-law.
Yeah.
She comes in and I call her the closer.
Tie it all together.
Yeah, she finishes. She's really talented in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And it's a traditional Thanksgiving. And it's coming up this year, and we've had from maybe 5 or 6 people for Thanksgiving, but we've had 20 plus, and trust me, 20 plus is really hard. But you got to think it through. But it's almost like business, because you got to plan, you got to build when you're doing that scale, and it kind of exercises different muscles.
Do you have a favorite dessert for the Thanksgiving?
I'm not a dessert guy, but I grew up on pumpkin pie, so I guess that's it for me.
That are you kind of sick of pumpkin pie if you grew up on it?
Yeah, pretty much.
Too much? Yeah. Nothing's better than that first time you tried it.
That's right, and but I still like it. So
yeah. So you mentioned family time as well, and burning a lot of the energy here. Is it movies? Is it music when you get the family together?
No, it's going for a walk. It's watching whatever, TV and watching sports, and we're a big sports family.
Okay.
It's watching football last week. We sat around, watched Duke University beat Miami, which was fantastic, and seeing them have success. Big OU fan, so we do that. Big Thunder fan, so we love that.
That's exciting too, to be on the side of reporting that as well, right? To have your sportscasters here and have the guys do their thing, and either be on the sideline somewhere or down on the court of Thunder. Like that's perks of the job. You probably get some sweet tickets and get to be involved a lot as well. Get to meet people on a
well, you do, and you got great relationships with the University of Oklahoma. Joe Castiglione and I are really good friends, and I think he's one of the best athletic directors around, and just being a part of the university, which was a big part of my life growing up. We used to all, go to every football game. When I was growing up in Muskogee, I think they could be on TV 2 times a year. Okay. So you think about it. So if you want to watch an OU game, you've got to go there. Yeah. So we went to almost every game. And it was friends, and it was the event. It was the Saturday, and so you grow up doing that, and that was so. I would say sports is a huge part of our life.
Have you gotten to meet some of your sport heroes that you've watched on the field at OU?
Oh yeah.
To have them in the studio or just at dinner?
Not so much studio, more at down in Norman. Joe invites me sometimes to his suite, and he's always got great legends. Joe Washington, just seeing him play as a kid, and then meeting him, and it brings back a lot of fun memories.
I had no idea who Joe Washington was until last Sunday, and I actually played golf because I played golf with him on Monday.
Oh, really?
Last Monday, yeah. We played. It was a charity event for Golf for Africa. Who a former OU women's golfer Kendall Dye is now the president of this charity, and she had her first ever Oklahoma event, and it was a celebrity pro-am. So we played the first 9 holes with a LPGA Tour pro who played at Oklahoma State, and my second 9 was with Silver Shoes. Oh. And he showed up, and he had his music blaring, he had his cigar in his mouth, and he was having a great time. And we had an absolutely not the best golfer, but he told great stories and had an absolute blast with us.
He probably had some great ones. So let me tell you, every young boy growing up in Muskogee, Oklahoma in 1974 and 75 wanted to be Joe Washington. We thought we were. So.
Yeah, it was a blast, and I'm glad now I know who he is, and one day I'm sure we'll sit down with him and share his story. But he, there's people like that were great back in the day. That just, like you said, you had to go see them. You couldn't watch them on TV.
Yeah, it was a total different experience.
Yeah. I wish people some part of me wishes you could still do that, right? That you're not just like stuck in your phone or you're watching highlights on Twitter. You've actually got to be there and see the game and be in a part of the
I miss that a lot. I mean, you sit around and our 14-year-old son's got so much going on, and he's got fantasy leagues, and it's just this one. It used to be just you're present at one event. Mm-hmm. And that I kind of miss that a little bit, but I get that's just the way things evolve.
Is he going to play for Heritage as well?
Yeah, he's playing right now for Heritage.
Okay.
So he's a freshman. He's a center.
Okay.
And he's been fortunate. He's got to, unfortunately, through some injuries, got to play quite a bit this year.
Yeah. And they've been pretty good over the years, too.
They're doing really, really well. My son, Jack, he won 3 state titles with Heritage.
Wow. Okay.
Actually 4. He won 3 in soccer, or 3 in football and 1 in soccer.
Yeah.
So he's a 4-time state champion, which is wild to think about. But Heritage got a great team this year, great coaches, great administration, and let's hope they go for another state title.
Yeah, that would be great, because obviously the history and looking back, the people who've played in those teams have gone on to do great things, and it's a great place for your kids to go to school.
Yeah, it's great education.
Friends who are there, friends who have just, a friend of mine actually just got a job there. She's working in one of the departments and absolutely loves it. So it's good to probably hear that the kids enjoy it too, but obviously you got to have employees that enjoy it too, otherwise work isn't fun. Random question, throwing this in there. When was the last time you rewarded yourself?
Oh, what do you mean?
I mean, could be anything. You sound, you love working here, you work a lot. I don't see you ever slowing down. You always kind of be that guy that comes into the office. When was the last time you thought, you know what, I should treat myself a little bit?
Oh, every day. It just, I like getting up first thing in the morning, and I just appreciate everything, the opportunity I have, and I'm not really into stuff or. Experiences are fun. Treat myself would be me saying to Kirsten, "Hey, I'm going to go hike, and then with my fishing pole and go fly fish for a couple hours in the middle of nowhere." That's just a great day for me. So I guess that would be
get away from the noise.
Yeah, just completely drop off.
Yeah. Are you reading anything right now other than the news?
Mostly news. Some fiction. Nothing too interesting.
Okay. Do you have, you mentioned getting up in the morning, having a coffee. Do you have like a specific routine or something?
Oh, I'm terrible about routine. It's awful. No, I get up and I consume media. I watch our local news. I record all the newscast, and I'm able to watch our Tulsa operations too. Yeah. I read the Wall Street Journal, the Oklahoman, every single day. And then try to go exercise and jack up on coffee before I come in and start bothering people.
So it's still pretty. You always have the eye for detail then, with all of the news stuff that's going on, especially within your business. There's always something that. Always something we can improve on generally as human beings, but as a boss as well, you always keep an eye on them.
Well, we got great people who really take care of all the detail. I just want to be informed about what we're doing. When you walk by somebody, you can just say, "Hey, thanks for that great story." Storm Jones and I were talking yesterday about a story that he did, it was just, you connect with people and just say how much you appreciate their work, and it's genuine, because it's just, look, I saw this report, and that was really well done.
Yeah. Well, and also I think a lot of people probably look at news companies and think all you do is talk about negative disaster, like that is the stuff that's going to draw people in, and sadly that just seems to be the news industry. But to your point, you get to cover some pretty incredible stories, and sadly I think most people forget about the good, don't they?
Yeah.
But over your the last 30 plus years of kind of the rise of Oklahoma City and after the bombing, you've told some incredible stories.
We have, and it's crime and disasters are a part of what's going on, and so we have to do that. But we also need to be better. We need to be better and cover stories that are really important. And our group has really challenged our whole team to just, how can we just be better? How can we do different things? And sending Alex to Washington is part of that. We put a segment in called Something Good. Really, literally, tell me good stories. Tell me about people. Tell me about somebody doing amazing work in the state of Oklahoma, helping people or building something. And we've got to make sure that we do that, because the other stuff, quite honestly, can be too easy too. Yeah. You can go to the cop shop and just read whatever's on the police blotter and call it a day. Well, that's not what we're about. Yeah.
What about the future then? Obviously, this building is now, kind of a lot of your focus, getting people in here, getting it up and running and functioning. And I think you said, was it November 13th was the first going to be broadcast?
We're shooting for November 13th. I think we'll be all set. So
okay. And after that, then, what excites you about once this is done and everyone's in? What's the quote 15, 20 year
Yeah, so that's a great question because so we've been working on this project really for 3 years.
Yeah.
It took us about 2 years to find a location, to negotiate this agreement, to design the space, to build it out, and then to move in. And we're trying to integrate people into the space. And I'm seeing my life kind of getting some check. I guess what I'm saying is I can check the box that these things are done, and people are here. So it's like, all right, next chapter for this organization. As we stare into 2023, our teams are working on that right now, and I'm kind of staring out. Okay, where are we? What do we need to be doing? How do we prepare to keep this company healthy, and financially as a team healthy, so we can build this. So when opportunities come up, which they will, that we're prepared for it.
Yeah. It's an exciting time, right? I mean, and even though, we might be going into recession or the market, whatever you see, the market's not doing well, the exciting thing is those stories are always going to be there, right? Those good stories and those bad stories are always going to be there, and you're always going to have something to report on to the best of your ability. And what probably is interesting for you, and I love, is the fact that you have so many different personalities in this building, and everyone is great in their own right. You talk about David, Jim, Robin, everybody, and you're just a giant family, and there's nothing better than coming to work and seeing everyone work together and be happy about what they do. Yeah,
the energy is so good, and this building was designed to put the newsroom front and center. And in our old building, they're kind of tucked away. And in Tulsa, we put the newsroom front and center. Here, we really put it front and center. I mean, the main entrance and the employee entrance all converge right in the middle of the newsroom, and having all the anchors and the talent right there in front and center, and how we activate this, be a part of downtown, is something that is I really look forward to seeing what our teams can come up with about how do we bring what's going on in downtown Oklahoma City into the living room, into the phone, into whatever device you're on, to our viewers, and showcase this, because there is something special about this. And I think there's going to be a great opportunity for us to figure that out. And we're limited only by our imagination.
Of all you have, all of the things that you've accomplished, what do you feel like you have yet to have accomplished, and what do you not?
Oh
what
God, what have I accomplished? My story is still to be written. We'll see. I think we got a long runway to go, and I just want to really prepare this company to be very healthy. And to have a group of people that care about each other, who work together really, really well. And we all have our moments, and we're not perfect, but we strive to do just great work. And that's what success is for me.
I'm sure it can be very overwhelming at times, right? You've got so much to do and so many people in here and people coming at you all the time. But when you go back to that mission of yours, of keeping people safe, informed, and entertained.
It's pretty clear.
It's pretty, And it's just your North Star, isn't it? You come back to that, like, are we doing that? Yes. Oh, no. Okay, then how do we figure that out? So it's impressive. The building's awesome. The location. I love the detail that, just listening to you talk about the passion in your voice when you talk about giving me a tour and telling me all about that. You really care about this building, and you really care about the layout and how this is going to function when everyone's in here.
It was a lot of fun to do. It took a lot of energy. But every room has a purpose. Everything was very intentional and purposeful. And from the furniture selection to the layout of the building, and then to my wife who curated, along with Josh and others, the collection of art that's going to be here is going to be pretty spectacular.
Yeah. Last thing then, obviously we're coming towards the end of the year. Is there anything that you're just personally looking forward to the end of the year that you're excited about?
No, my wife and I are going to take a vacation at some point. We've been hitting it hard with this place. We're going to get out, and I don't know what we're going to do.
Well, does your wife share your passion for hiking and fishing?
No, she hates to hike. Oh God, it's terrible. They call them David's death hikes.
So she's going to be in a spa, taking her time.
That's exactly it.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time out. Thank you so much for the tour of this building. I can't wait to see it fully functioning. I can't wait to watch some newscasts from the studio, see David do his thing, and see all the other employees that you have. See the smiles on their faces. I'm sure they're super excited to come into a new building, but also as well for the things that you do that you don't talk about. Because I know through Sydney, when I first asked her, when we were at the PGA Championship, I said, would David come on a podcast? She goes, I don't know. He doesn't really like to do this stuff.
Yeah.
And I love that because, you're not the look at me, I look at all the cool things I've done. You're kind of quietly going about your business and making a huge impact. And it goes a long way to say that you haven't sold out, right? All these companies could have come to you and offered you an obnoxious amount of money, but it goes back to what would you do, right? If you did so, what's next?
Okay, then so what purpose are you going to have?
Right.
How can you interact with people? How can you impact your community? And we've had a great run, and it's been a lot of fun, and we continue to build for that.
Yeah, it says a lot about who you are. It says a lot about your character, and I really appreciate you taking the time to share some stories. Like you just said, you're not done yet. The story's still yet to be written, and I look forward to sitting down with you in another 10, 15, whenever, to tell the full story. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And for people listening, we'll catch you next episode.
Thanks, Mike.
Cheers. Hope you guys enjoyed that great episode. Thank you so much for listening. As always, huge shout out to our sponsors, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, sharing Oklahoma story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com and follow them on Instagram for daily updates at OklahomaHOF. Our other sponsor, the Chickasaw Nation, amazing sponsor. They do amazing things for the state, and they're always sponsoring something in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma, and without their support, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. And finally, our third sponsor for today, the Oklahoma 988 Mental Health Lifeline. 988 is the direct 3-digit lifeline that connects you with the trained behavioral health professionals that can get all Oklahomans the help that they need. Learn more by visiting 988oklahoma.com. It's 988oklahoma.com. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening. We are inspired by those around us and hope that you are too. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review so we can keep telling your stories. For more great Oklahoma content, follow This Is Oklahoma on Facebook and Instagram.